about the science itself, the ethics of science. They're doing a new class at the University of Houston that deals with the ethics of scientific practice. It's an entire class for graduate students like yourselves. And one of the things I've been trying to get them to do is use some novels.
Yeah.
Because this is perfect for it. To teach, and that's one of the definitions of science fiction. It talks about the ramifications of science, where scientists traditionally were not educated in that. They just weren't. They weren't even taught to think about the ethical, political, environmental, any other all you can think of ramifications of what they're doing. And so now novels were the play, or science fiction stories were the thing that did that. They said, well, let's stop and think about this. What is this going to do to people? I think that's the most fascinating thing.
Now, I would tend to agree, but I would throw a caveat out that a lot of science fiction the science is just too made up that, you're not going to, the average person's understanding of cloning is, this bizarre mismatch, and you press a button, you get a photocopy of something. And maybe they're a mind-controlled zombie, I don't know. But, that's just not what cloning would be. And if you take the kind of pulpy, bad science explanation of cloning, that's really not going to tell you anything about the ethics of actual cloning as we could do it in the laboratory today. Not every science fiction story is appropriate for, or is a good basis for an ethical debate on whether we should be doing this or should not be doing that.
If I may, let me use my book as an example of ethics in scientific science fiction. Because in the book I posit huge starship is going to go find another world to start civilization all over again. Because civilization, at the time the book starts, it's not going that well on Earth. But the Foundation built a huge starship to go find a better world. To find a new world, to start a better civilization, because what they're going to find is something that they're lucky, kind of like Mars. It'll take a lot of terraforming. Off they go. The first destination, there was a problem. Kind of by astronomical chance, the world they meant to go to, wasn't there waiting for them. They had to go on. By the time they got to a better destination, like 1,000 and more years of being frozen in stasis had begun to compromise their bodies to a genetic level. When the starship found a world, only that it found breathing. It found a rather Earth-like world with a huge ocean-covered moon, and that's the hurricane. The same solar system also had a rather good Mars-like world just a little further out in the habitable zone. So here come these star-weary travelers. And there is a decision to be made. Do you settle on the Earth-like world, crowding terrestrial people and plants, other organisms, and civilization in? Or do you go terraform the Mars-like world, which was all you expected to find in the first place? Characters in the book argue this. The losing side is the side that says, ethically we should go make this Mars which is pretty much lifeless, into our new world and leave the green world, planet green alone. Because of the way human nature operates, that side lost. And first thing they did was to blow a mountaintop off on the green world and put a colony bubble. And from there it's going to go, except they find themselves in a season of crisis where nothing is what they expected. And above all, the idealists who thought they were leaving human, I'll use the word evil, along, with human civilization behind them on Earth, they were wrong. You don't leave that kind of baggage when you go to the stars, as people discover. And the least ethical guy in the book is a scientist who makes artificial organisms. He's a theoretical genetic engineer. His reasons were not idealistic at all. He made a bad enemy, he made believer, it's real bad. He is the one who has the hardest encounter with himself. Like the Norwegians say, you run into yourself with a door and realize who we are. So the least ethical guy in there is the one who really gets his clock reset, while everyone else is thinking through ethics and struggling to survive. So well, I guess the point is that's what you can do in science fiction. That is science. It's science, the power of science that takes it to another world and gives you the option of do we remodel it? Do we make it after our own image? Who has heard of the planetary protection debate in space science and circles? Okay, it's real, it's live. People are deeply concerned about this. How ethical is it for us to go to the moon or Mars and change things? Whether or not there's life there, is it truly ethical for us to go and plant ourselves and our life and our germs on the moon or Mars or other worlds? So there are scientists, and if you Google planetary protection, you'll find that there's some deeply passionate and seriously credentialed scientists who have been raising the issue in the context of the space program now.
This actually ties into a question that I also wanted to ask about this conversation about actual scientists talk about this and about how people understand cloning is how science fiction influences public policy on this kind of stuff. Like if all people know about cloning is what they see in a movie, do you think that affects how we're going to make laws about cloning and genetic selection and funding for NASA and things like that?
I'll turn it over to you.
I mean, I'm pretty cynical about the political process, so
All right, so Mike get into politics.
Okay.
I'll try to. I won't name political parties because I'm pretty.
General public policy.
Right. I mean, 90% of the people, their opinion, whatever opinion they might have, it's not gonna percolate to the power makers in Washington. I mean, Alexis disagrees. I'm sure she'll tell me in a few minutes. But my sense of how public policy is made is it's the aides of senators and congressmen and cocktail party chatter among recent Ivy League graduates and people working in the bureaucracies. It's just a small nexus of people in Washington D.C. who end up making all the decisions. The aides are the ones who write those 1,500-page bills that the senators and congressmen don't read when they vote on. But I mean, those people, I get the feeling most of them do not have scientific backgrounds. They majored in something, soft. Not to criticize the academic side of but that they don't have a good grasp of the science. So what they do have are images from science fiction, from movies and TV and things like that. So I do think there is an influence on how public policy gets made. I don't think it's a good one.
I concur. The latest example is there's a new thing going on, which is the direction of NASA has been changed from NASA doing most of the space exploration to commercial space operations doing the low Earth orbit stuff. There's a small problem there in that the track record they have so far is very slight. Now, mind you, I adore spaceship. And I listened to a talk given by Mike Melville, the Spaceship One test pilot. Oh, wow, so cool. However, can commercial space entities, as they now exist, now take on the load of taking everything that we need to take up to low Earth orbit up there